P.O.P podcast, let's go. The P.O.P podcast, let's go. The P.O.P podcast starts now.
Hello, welcome to the P.O.P podcast. I'm Jason Sirotin, joined by my co-host, Scott Haley. Scott, how are you doing today?
I am doing great. It's Friday. It's spring here in Minnesota, and life is getting better here, right?
Yeah, it means it's only negative 20 today.
Yes. Right.
Well, welcome. I'm really excited today. We have a very special guest. We have Janel Rykert. She is the operations manager at Nord Orthodontics out of Orem, Utah, and Eagle Mountain, Utah. And Dr. Nord is one of the founding members of P.O.P. So it is great to have you on the show. How are you doing today, Janel?
I'm honored to be here. Thank you so much. I'm doing really, really well. So we just got back from spring break and a little sunshine and back into the grind of things. But I'm
Where'd
doing
you
well,
go?
thank you. We actually went on a family cruise with some of my husband's siblings, cousins, of a group of about 15 of us went on a cruise to the Bahamas. So it was
very cool.
Yeah, it was good to get away for a little bit. And like Scott said, it's sunny and shiny here in Utah and spring is on the way. So
I love that. It's still dreary here in New Hampshire. But let's talk about something bright. And those are the smiles that Dr. Nord creates. Tell us about the practice, what you do there, and then we'll get into how you met Scott.
You bet. So I am the practice manager at Dr. Nord's office. My role entails a lot of different things, but essentially I'm over the operations of the practice. So I do a lot of analytical things as far as like numbers and stuff like that, which I actually really enjoy that part. I know a lot of people aren't numbers peoples, but I love that part. But I also just oversee staff and hiring and patient relationships. And so kind of just overall everything with the practice management. So.
And how long have you known Scott?
So Scott Nord, my Scott, or Scott Haley?
Oh, Scott Haley.
Well, it's been a couple years once we got the P.O.P rolling. And then, what was awesome about it is, in addition to Dixie, Janelle, and those were kind of the two people that I was told to connect with to really get into the weeds of understanding the business of orthodontics. And Janelle's been a tremendous resource for me and P.O.P in terms of, I came from it an understanding like, okay, you need to buy brackets and you need to buy certain supplies, but the actual business of orthodontics, there's a lot to it. And Janelle's been a tremendous resource in understanding what some of those vendor partnerships should look like in that area as well.
Janelle, how did you get started in orthodontics? Where did your journey begin?
You bet. So I've been in the dental industry for about 22 years this year. And I actually was told about an opportunity. I was at a general dentist office, and then I was told about an opportunity to come over as a financial coordinator at Dr. Nord's office. So I've been with him coming up on 17 years this year. My entire orthodontic journey has been at the same practice, which I think speaks a lot to just kind of our office in general. But so I started out and was hired as a financial coordinator, and after about 6 weeks transitioned into also doing treatment coordinating. So I've kind of just progressed through, I've done scheduling, treatment coordinating, office management, then overall kind of practice management. The only thing I haven't done is, I know how to do emergencies in the back, but that's not my jam. Working in the patient's mouth is not I love the transformation and the smiles, but doing the actual work in the mouth is not my expertise.
So Janelle, I think it's interesting. One of the reasons we wanted to have you on here is the role of practice manager, office manager, operations manager. It's an interesting role and it looks different. And I know you've had the opportunity to see it done many different ways. Can you talk about the way I see it in your practice is it's kind of like, if I was going to think about it as like a flow chart or a org structure, it's like you got Dr. Nord here, but you're like right there. And then then you have the various departments within the practice and everything kind of funnels up through you to some degree, which
Yeah.
allows Dr. Nord to be super efficient. Because in my career, you deal with doctors that are wearing a lot of different hats. And not that Dr. Nord isn't wearing those hats, but it's like you're really the one that's kind of helping manage all of that. So can you talk a little bit about how you see the departments within the practice, from financial coordinator, clinical? How do they flow? How does that look in your practice?
Yeah, so I mean, that's definitely been a journey in itself as well, because up until about 2 years ago, I was actually still doing the treatment coordinating part, helping in financials, but also doing practice management stuff. And it's just been in the last couple of years that we've had the ability to hire the team for me to kind of step out and just be more in a management role. So it's been a progressive journey with that as well, where Dr. Nord we've taken some things off my plate, and then I've been able to kind of take more things off of his plate as well. But essentially, I oversee the clinic from a standpoint of doing a lot of the analytical stuff, as far as like, what's our emergency rates at? How can I help? Where do we need additional training to be able to help with the flow of the clinic? I do a lot of the templating on the schedule, like where are our bottlenecks? How can we figure out where the doctors needed when, so that we can make that more efficient, so clinical team members aren't, sitting around waiting on him. I help oversee the scheduling, how many of each type of appointment are we seeing, but then the scheduling team, takes over that. But I kind of oversee that. And then flow of the consultations, we do a lot of training on our new patient phone calls with our scheduling team to figure out how that process is going and what experiences we're giving. So I kind of oversee really all areas of the practice in different ways.
Yeah. Are you organizing and do you look like at a dashboard, or are there KPIs that you guys are measuring that are really, kind of like these are the big things that you're sharing with Dr. Nord, so that you guys are getting a great gauge on the health of the practice?
Yeah, so we do a lot of analytical stuff. The biggest weight on a practice, from kind of my perspective, is patients going over treatment time. And part of that can be patient compliance, part of that can be on the end of emergencies. What are we doing that could help reduce emergencies from that standpoint? But we obviously measure production goals each month, how many new starts we have, what types of new starts we have. We also measure, obviously, our collections and financial, production as well. We overview, those things I was just mentioning, like wait in the clinic. What are our wait times for patients? How long are we booked out on exams? Are we losing patients because we can't get them in soon enough for a new patient consultation? So there are a lot of things that we kind of measure. How many missed phone calls do we have, each month? Like, what is our call answer rate? How can we improve on that? So yeah, there's a lot that goes on behind the scenes to make just the day-to-day flow of the practice.
Yeah, that's awesome.
In your time, what has been the biggest changes on the practice management side over the last 17 years? Because I'm sure you've seen a lot, but what have been the most impactful things?
I don't feel like a lot has changed in the hiring process and the team building process. And I feel like this probably just goes across the board. The workforce is different now. And so one of the biggest things we've done is really try and focus on our culture, because team members who enjoy coming to work together work more efficiently together as well. So if we're not talking about kind of data and actual things from that standpoint, I think us spending a lot of time focusing on building a team that really works well together, that has each other's back, and we've spent a lot of time working and developing on that in the last several years, because it's just different. The workforce is different than it used to be, and it's constantly changing. And so I have to keep up on my leadership skills and how to empower and help our team members to be able to grow. And also just working with people who are in a growth mindset. Things are constantly changing. And that doesn't mean that we can implement every change and every amazing thing that comes out. There's so much technology available now too, to help from an administrative side. And so kind of going through some of those things and figuring out what we need, what we can implement, how we can grow. Those have probably been the biggest things from a non-clinical standpoint.
And I think those are the fundamentals of good business, is having a good team and focusing on those things. 17 years you've been at the practice. Are there other people that have been there for a long period of time? And how does that affect the overall culture? Because I imagine it's a very tight-knit group.
Yeah. So one of our scheduling coordinators, who is amazing, she's been with us for just about a year less than me. She's coming up on her 16 year. So we're probably like the two OGs of the practice. I mean, Dr. Nord was only in practice for a few years before I came on board. So I kind of feel like I laugh a little bit when I go back and look at pictures. I'm like, look, we were young and didn't have gray hair, you know. But so yes, and then we have several other team members that have been around for quite some time. One of the things we truly try to work on in our office is we want it to be a home for people. We want them to make a career of it. And I know that that's not everybody's kind of mindset. You know, people come and it might be a job as they're working towards something else, like going to dental school themselves, or it could be to become a hygienist, you know, but we don't lose a lot of people because they leave and go to other offices. We lose people because they're of life circumstances, getting married, moving, things like that. So I think it's really important that we are a home for them. We spend as much time together as a team as we sometimes get to spend waking hours with our families.
And so it should be fun. It should be a good place. It should feel good.
Yeah.
So it sounds like you guys are doing everything right there. What tools or innovations have you implemented that have been kind of game changers or brought an aha moment to you?
Yeah, so a couple years ago, we actually did some training with the Arbinger Institute, which has been a huge thing for us. And sometimes, like I kind of mentioned before, change can be really hard, and it gets messy sometimes as you're trying to do it. And so what Arbinger focuses on is living in an outward mindset, and how do the things that I do affect the people around me. I think sometimes even in a work culture, we get frustrated with each other because it's like, you know, hey, if you know, so-and-so would just do their job, then it would make my job easier or whatever. It's hard sometimes not to get caught up in the busyness of the day, feeling frustrations, but we've really tried to take a step back and just look at it from a standpoint of accountability. Like, what am I doing that's affecting the people around me? So I'll use for myself as an example. I'm a doer. Like, I put my head down, I work, I do. And sometimes I get so busy in, you know, tasks and things like that, that I have to take a step back and look at, you know, how is the health of my team? Do I need to meet with individuals? Do I need to have one-on-one? So one thing that we started implementing is we do what are called meet to learns with our team. And Dr. Nord, we've done it multiple different ways, but Dr. Nord will send team members out to lunch, and and pays for them to go to lunch, and they sit down with each other and basically just get to know each other on a personal level, where we're seeing each other as people instead of just seeing them as maybe an object in my way to get through my day, or a nuisance or a frustration. We also set it up, which I thought was really, really fun, like speed dating. So we did a lunch in our office where I had everyone submit questions that they wanted. And they weren't necessarily work questions. It could be like, if you were born in a generation, which would it be? Or describe your perfect vacation or a paid day off or something. And the team all came up with questions. And what I thought was amazing is I didn't have we have 22 team members. I didn't have a single duplicate question. So people got really creative. And then we were able to sit down and do kind of like speed dating where we drew questions, and it was so fun just as a team building lunch activity to just be able to get to know each other. And so, yeah, we really tried to just focus on things like that with our culture.
What's interesting is most people would say, talk about something technical that they brought into the organization. But again, you went people first. And it was organic for you. You're automatically going to what is going to change your people processes, which is really interesting. So props to you. How because you're so integrated into P.O.P and have been since the onset of P.O.P, how are you seeing it affect the practice now that you're in the group and it's all taking shape and more members are joining? How is it evolving and changing and the practice in general, because you've been part of it since the start?
Well, technically their office was office number 1.
Oh, nice.
Right. So yeah, I mean, you and the practice obviously had a big part of shaping what we are, but yeah, that would love to. Hopefully it's had an impact in terms of your bottom line, in terms of savings.
Yeah,
but
for
there's
sure.
There's other things as well, obviously.
For sure. So I remember Dr. Nord kind of telling me about this idea and him just being really excited about, what they were trying to create and just in the brainstorming part of it, and to watch it come to fruition and see the growth that's happened. I mean, obviously it started out as an opportunity to save practices money, but after even participating in the study club that took place in January and being there and just seeing the collaboration of the orthodontists that were there, I just think that they are onto something really phenomenal from a standpoint of having a network of people that are like-minded practices that want to grow, that want to get better. You have new orthodontists, you have old orthodontists, but what it does from us, from a practice management standpoint, is it also gives us a network of other practice managers to be able to collaborate with. I mean, we by no means have everything perfect. There's lots of things that we have to work on, but it's so great to have other practice managers to be able to reach out to as well and just have conversations like, hey, how do you guys bonus structure? How do you, handle these things in your office? I was on a call with Dixie yesterday from Dr. Horsley's office having a conversation. So I just think the collaboration itself and being surrounded by like-minded individuals that are working towards the same thing is probably, from my standpoint, I understand there's a bottom line financially for these practices, but from my standpoint, I feel like that's just as valuable as the money savings that happen from being part of P.O.P.
Yeah. And, it's funny. I just quoted Dr. Nord yesterday about the doctor, and he's always said, like, the power of this group isn't saving doctors a nickel on a box of gloves. It's like the power of this group is if we can share best practices, if we become more efficient, if we grow our number of starts and we're more efficient and we're learning all the things together, that makes our practices way more profitable than just, driving down our supply costs. And I think you just said it really well there. Just the efficiencies behind the scenes are huge. Think about how inefficient it is to have a bad team culture and constantly be hiring employees, right? Like that trickles through to your patients, it trickles through to your productivity. So those investments are super powerful.
Yeah, I would completely agree with that. I feel like there's probably a heavier cost burden on the practice for having poor culture, hard, team members, and not focusing on that. That's going to cost you just as much money as overpaying for supplies in the long run, and hiring, right, and training and things like that. So, but Yeah, I was so honored to be there and be a part of this study club. And I walked away from that. And the first thing I said to Dr. Nord is, you guys are onto something really special. Like, it felt so special being there.
Yeah. Real quick, I apologize if I can't remember if were you able to participate in some of the office manager workshops that we've done, or?
I have not done any of the practice manager workshops so
Yeah.
far. So
Yeah. Okay. But that is the future or the vision too for the group as we go here, that there will be an opportunity to do those types of things down the road, which you'll be a part of. Jason?
Yeah.
You were
So
gonna say-
from a practice manager perspective, why should, they look at P.O.P and what P.O.P has to offer if their docs are, saying, hey, we might be looking at going DSO, or we're looking at options to get better pricing. Why should, people in your position take a look at P.O.P?
yeah, so even just from a price savings, as far as some of the vendor relationships that we're creating from an administrative side. So there's obviously, like, savings on your brackets and your gloves and things like that. But there's a lot of really amazing different vendors out there that offer a lot to help with the efficiency as well on the practice management side. So whether that's, doing analytical stuff with Gauge, or it could be doing Lead Sigma to help with your missed calls. So there are practice management software things that can actually be very helpful, or integrations to your software that can be really helpful from the efficiency side of the team as well, from an administrative standpoint. So it's not just the vendor relationships in the back office or the clinical side. It's overall with helping with that. And then I just think as it continues to grow, building that network of practice managers. Sometimes, to be honest, management can be a little lonely. You don't always have, team members besides your doctor, but you also have your doctor who's trying to manage all these other things. It's amazing to be able to build a network of people to be able to bounce ideas off of as well, and answer questions for each other. And to be honest, save you potentially from going down a road that you're like, oh yeah, we did that, it was terrible, don't do it. It can save you time with things like that as well. So
a little bit about, it seems like the hiring seems like the hot topic, right? I mean, I think you addressed it. Like, probably the most important thing you can do is keep your current team members, and you do that through culture and all those types of things. But is there anything that you've learned over the years that it has given you a leg up on attracting talent to the practice when you do need a new team member?
yeah, so I think it's important to do a thorough interview process prior to having people come on board with your team. I kind of had mentioned previously, people leave for life circumstances. Like, we're in the process right now because we've got 2 people moving out of state for looking for new clinical team members. And just going through the process of doing, obviously you've got your phone interview, obviously you've got your, in-person interviews, but they're interviewing us just as much as we're interviewing them. And I think it's really important just to have a collaborative group that enjoys coming to work, but then finding team members. We can train the right people, as long as they come in with a willing attitude. And so we try and set the expectations up front of what that job role looks like, what the expectations are going to be for it. And then we actually, as part of the onboarding process, we require all of our team members to read a book with Arbinger. And that is just part of our process and our culture. And I explain that to them in their interview process, that, that's number one for us, because you can teach skills, but teaching people, attitudes and things like that, that's a totally different ball game. So we just spend time kind of weeding through some of those things to make sure that we're getting the right people on board.
Yeah. But I'll wrap up with this question. I think, Doctor, you mentioned something interesting. It's not as easy. Like, you've been with the practice in a huge amount of growth over the 17 years, right? So my guess is, like, up until recently, you were wearing different hats in the practice. And So that's really common. So what's that point when a practice knows they should probably have someone that's doing what you're doing now as like a full-time? I mean, how does a doctor know, like, hey, now is the time to do something like that? I mean, is it about revenue, or is it more about like just a gut feeling? I mean, or is it just about having the right person maybe is more important than anything? If you have the right person, maybe that's the time to do it.
Yeah, I think that is a multi-layered answer, to be honest. I joke with Dr. Nord all the time. Like when I very first came on board, the financial coordinator was working part-time, and he's like, I don't know if I have enough work to keep you busy. And every year in my eval, it's like, Janelle, you got to work less. You got to work less, because I work a lot. I think it is a matter of, you have to be really careful and watch for burnout, because if you're wearing too many hats, and I will say this for myself, even though my job is like overseeing the practice, when I'm doing everything, I can't be successful at everything. So I've really had to work on learning how to delegate other tasks to people and not necessarily being the worker bee that does everything, because I do know how to do all those roles. And so I've had to work on myself to be able to step out of that, to be able to say, okay, I'm handing this over and I trust that you're gonna, do it and complete it. But if you have team members that are working way beyond, or the like what their hours are, and there's no way for them to get everything done and things are falling through the cracks, you have to make sure that they're working efficiently. But B, if they are working efficiently, it's probably time to get them some help. But then the other part of that is, I don't think you truly know the health of your practice unless you're diving into some of the analytical stuff. It can seem fine, right? You can be like, we're growing, but we are growing, but how many missed opportunities do we have? There's just so many different analytical things that you're looking at from that standpoint as well. I don't think unless you start to dive into some of those things, you really have an overview of the practice, because you can have team members that are like, I'm good. But there's all these things falling through, right? That you just don't even realize are falling through because they're not analytics that you're looking at.
Yep. 1,000%. Thank you for the insights. Janel Rykert from Nord Orthodontics. You can go to UtahValleyBraces.com if you're in the Orem, Utah or Eagle Mountain, Utah area. They're a great choice for orthodontics.
Janelle, I got to tell you, you've been such a great resource for me. I want to thank you so much. And
Thank you.
Dr. Nord acts like you're just like his third arm. Like that always says a lot to me when they act like they couldn't be what they are. You guys have such an impressive practice, but I think you're a huge part of that. So thank you for that.
Yeah, thank you so much.
Yeah. But as far as POP goes, just go to poportho.com, -ortho.com. You're going to schedule an intake call. It'll go right to my Calendly link. I'll spend some time learning about you and your practice. And it's amazing. I love the conversations. I actually was just recently talking to a doctor, and what he talked about is exactly what Janelle was talking about today. Like practice has been successful. It's growing, but like he doesn't know his numbers. He doesn't have his statistics. He knows he can be better, right? Like I think what we're doing here is we're providing doctors with aspiration and inspiration in a lot of times. And so, yeah, give me a call. I'd love to learn about you and your practice and share the cool things we're doing in our group.
Absolutely. And last but not least, Brain Bites Creative, orthodontics marketing to increase starts. If you're looking to add starts and do it with a great team, make sure you schedule a meeting with Caroline. Hit her up at Caroline@brainbitescreative.com. She'll work on a free analysis with the team, get you a ton of information, and provide a lot of value. Once again, that's brainbitescreative.com. On behalf of the P.O.P team, I'm Jason Sirotin. We'll see you next time.
P.O.P. Podcast.